A full NFL season has come and gone, and we still have no resolution to the Deshaun Watson situation in Houston. Watson facing both criminal and civil challenges. His lawyer, Rusty Hardin, recently stated that he expects a grand jury to make a decision regarding whether Watson will be charged with any crimes and the levels of the charges, whether they're felonies or misdemeanors. That'll be determined by April 1st. But the civil cases brought by 22 massage therapists, of course, still being built and have to be dealt with. So if no trade can be done and Watson continues to not play for the Texans, it will be Davis Mills once again taking the snaps in Houston. New Texans head coach Lovie Smith has high praise for the second-year quarterback, which kicks off our NFL sound-off season with Jonathan Jones. And we welcome in our senior NFL insider who's here to break down some quotes we heard this week, all doing with quarterbacks. JJ, let's start with Houston. And the Texans appear to be moving forward with Davis Mills as QB1 based on what Lovie Smith said this week. Here's the quote from him. "You don't give out starting positions in the spring, but I love what Davis has done. He's our quarterback going into the season. There's a lot of positions I'm worried about. Quarterback is not one of them." He said that via the Rich Eisen show. So what are you taking away from his quote that he's not worried about the quarterback position right now?
Well, of course he's going to say that, because what else is he going to say? You can't acquire another quarterback right now. You know that Deshaun Watson isn't going to be playing there in 2022. So go ahead and heap praise and deliver confidence to Davis Mills now going into his second season. And look, he had a pretty good year last year, all things considered. When you look at how the rookie quarterbacks fared, I think there's a pretty good argument to say that he was number 2 behind Mac Jones. When you look at the 16 touchdowns, the 10 interceptions, the completion percentage around 67%. I thought that he fared pretty well out there. So might he be the week 1 starter for the Houston Texans? Sure, he very well may be, but they also have free agency coming up. They have the draft coming up, and they should have some capital. We know that they have the number 3 overall pick. Are they going to have more than that? Well, they're probably going to try to deal Laramie Tunsil. They're probably going to try to deal Brandon Cooks. And of course, they would very much like to deal Deshaun Watson, but General Manager Nick Caserio, Jeremy, listen, I saw the report out there earlier this week that there are teams lining up to make a deal with the Houston Texans if the criminal investigation and that side of the street, the very serious criminal investigation, ultimately wraps up with Deshaun Watson and there are no charges filed. The fact is that we're probably not going to know the answer to that before the start of free agency. And because we're not going to know that before the start of free agency, while there may be teams lining up for that hypothetical situation, the reality is that the Houston Texans don't have an offer out there on the table right now to accept for Deshaun Watson. We know that they turned away Carolina's offer. Deshaun Watson wouldn't even waive his no trade clause for them last season when around 3 first-round picks were on the table for him. Was this a misplay by Nick Caserio? Is this going to drag into and up until the night of the first round of the NFL draft? It very well may, but I don't think that we're going to have any resolution by the start of free agency. I don't think Deshaun Watson ultimately is going to be dealt by the start of free agency.
Yeah, and you heard his lawyer there saying, Rusty Hardin, saying they're not expecting a resolution to the criminal charges, at least some clarification, I should say, until at least April 1st. All right, let's go to Green Bay. General Manager Brian Gutekunst spoke with the media about his quarterback this week. He refuted reports that there's a handshake deal to trade Aaron Rodgers if he decides he wants out of Wisconsin. Let's listen to what he had to say here, JJ.
Yeah, again, another hypothetical. So we'll kind of, it's not something we like to do. We'd certainly, not like to do that if we don't have to. We'd certainly like to come up with a long-term deal that works for both sides. But that's, it's a hypothetical that a lot of things have to happen before we get to that point.
Well, in terms of your plan, is there a scenario in which you wouldn't add or extend?
All right, JJ, so they're waiting on Aaron then, apparently.
They are waiting on Aaron. And so the 3 possibilities that we have known for the past couple of weeks, well, they still remain. He could retire. I don't really think that's ultimately going to happen, but with Aaron Rodgers, you never really know. He could very well return to the Green Bay Packers. If he were to do that, he would very much want to see a long-term deal get done, obviously for himself, something that is approaching, if not at $50 million per year. And then also an extension for his good friend and one of the best wide receivers in the game today, Devontae Adams, or of course, we could see Aaron Rodgers be dealt. And whatever Brian Gutekunst says, the fact is that there is that possibility. He can be under contract. He can say that there was not that handshake agreement. Oh, I'm not so sure that there's not a gentleman's agreement that was at least established verbally back in July and August. And whether he wants to walk back on that, whether the question wasn't framed and phrased in the correct way for him to be able to wiggle out of it, those are two entirely different questions. But if Aaron Rodgers ultimately wants out of Green Bay, I do believe, as my reporting has been consistent over the past several months, he ultimately can find his way out of Green Bay. And where would he go? Well, the Denver Broncos have to be number one on that list. The Tennessee Titans very much, I believe, want in. They have to be very careful in their dance here with Aaron Rodgers because, of course, they have Ryan Tannehill under contract, and they've had some success there with Tannehill. So they do have to be careful about just how much they want Aaron Rodgers, or at least how public they can be about that. What ultimately is going to happen, maybe Aaron Rodgers knows at this point, but it is my belief that those around Rodgers, or at least the Green Bay Packers, do not yet know what he wants, and they're going to have to act accordingly. There's a report out there that he's going to decide soon. Well, he has about 12 days before the franchise tag window closes. So if that's soon to you, then at some point soon, he will make a decision.
Well, and I mean, in the meantime, I mean, we're all just breaking down his social media posts, right? I mean, he said he was feeling thankful the other day. That's why he put all that stuff out there. Not a goodbye, nothing like that. So everybody's doing the deep dive on his posts. All right, let's move along. Tom Brady retired. Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are turning to Blaine Gabbert as QB1. Going from Brady to Gabbert by choice might seem like lunacy, but Arians apparently knows something that we don't. Here's his quote. He beat Jacksonville, their best year, beat Tennessee, their big year for us in Arizona, and he's been in the system now. I don't have a problem there, and let Kyle continue to grow. He's never played with a team this good. He's talking about Gabbert, of course, and Kyle Trask continuing to grow into the system there. What are you taking away from the praise for Blaine Gabbert here?
I do not at all believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be starting Blaine Gabbert as their Week 1 starter in 2022. And if they are, this is probably not going to be a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. You know, they have a number of free agents, Jeremy, that they're going to have to figure out what they want to do with. Are they going to franchise tag Carlton Davis? They're going to let him walk? Or are they ultimately going to lock him in to a long-term deal, something that is going to be in the area of $18 or so million per year, maybe even $19 million per year? What are they going to do with Ryan Jensen there at center? The list really continues on and on with JPP and Ndamukong Suh, and what's Gronk going to do? Really, they need to, Leonard Fournette, they need to figure out how much of this group they can keep together. And obviously they were able to keep those guys together from their Super Bowl run 2 seasons ago, in large part and really in only part because of Tom Brady and his return. So are those guys going to be willing to come back, probably take less than they can get out on the open market? Or are they going to say, yeah, I'm going to try my chances elsewhere, go ahead and get paid and not be on a team that right now their best prospects are Blaine Gabbert? Again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it costs them nothing to speak highly of Blaine Gabbert and maybe even Kyle Trask right now. But if the Buccaneers want to be competitive in 2022, if they don't want to hit the reset button, and I understand why folks may want them to, certainly, then I think that they're going to have to make a move for a veteran quarterback. What sort of capital do they have in order to do that? To be determined. But I do think that they need to get a temperature check on their impending free agents via the combine when they speak with their respective representation and agents, understand what kind of team they can have in 2022, and then they will make a move at quarterback.
I'm not going to lie, though, JJ. I'm kind of intrigued now to see what Blaine Gabbert can do based on the way that Arians is talking about him. I mean, we could be looking at a future MVP the way that Arians is talking about him here. All right, new Miami offensive coordinator Frank Smith is super excited to be working with Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins reportedly in that Deshaun Watson conversation, but Smith says, no, Tua is his guy. Here's the quote from him. His patience with things and what we're going to be able to do is going to be really, really cool. And now, as we're getting into it every week, more and more tape, we get more and more excited. Now, look, that's in Sports Illustrated. If they bring Mike Gesicki back, I mean, they've got Jalen Waddle. JJ, there's some good pieces here in Miami, and I mean, a nice vote of confidence from the OC. That seems to be the theme here. We're getting votes of confidence all around.
Yeah. There's no reason to throw anybody under the bus, and the Miami Dolphins have no reason to throw Tua Tagovailoa under the bus. They're gonna prop him up and praise him, and it makes sense, right? Stephen Ross has enough going on right now with the Brian Flores lawsuit and the allegations of being offered $100,000 to intentionally lose games a couple of years ago that I'm not entirely sure it would be in the Miami Dolphins' best interest to trade for a Deshaun Watson with everything, as we talked about earlier, that he's dealing with. So maybe that's not what the franchise wants to do, and they're going to roll with Tua. And you mentioned the weapons that he has. Certainly, if they franchise tag Mike Gesicki, he's there at least for another year. They have Jalen Waddle. I expect that this offense is going to be a little bit more horizontal with Mike McDaniel now as the head coach. And they have about $60 million in cap space. So where are they going to use those resources? Certainly you want to up front with the offensive line, one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL up there with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Carolina Panthers, or down there, I should say. And then also you can add a wide receiver if one of those top wide receivers ultimately becomes available via free agency. If the Chargers don't franchise tag Mike Williams, if somehow Devontae Adams finds himself a free agent, which I do not believe there's any possibility of happening. So the Dolphins have cap room. They have cash to work with. They can add to this team, but it starts up front protecting Tua Tagovailoa, maybe to Teron Armstead, an impending free agent out of New Orleans. And then you start adding to his arsenal of weapons to add a wide receiver alongside Jalen Waddle.
It is NFL sound-off season with our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, breaking down some quarterback coaching relationships and a little bit of confidence boosting here on HQ. Thanks, JJ. Great to see you. Here's the offseason schedule as we are into the franchise tag window this week. The scouting combine, of course, coming up next week, and CBS Sports HQ will be there. Our Tommy Tran will be on site for that. We'll get regular reports from him next week. Legal tampering period opens March 14th to the 16th, and then the league year with free agency beginning on the 16th of March. Off-season workouts can start on the 18th of April, and then, of course, it is the NFL Draft, April 28th to the 30th in Las Vegas.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.